And
I'm going to do it privately this time.
No. I understand that. But that doesn't mean we can't take 4 or 5 minutes.
Oh, gosh. I love my dad.
And we talk about our fathers, or specifically your dad. And you don't have to read the letter. But if you were to meet a stranger and they say, Erin, I remember last year you read that open letter to your dad. And you updated him on your kids, and one in the Marines, and one of them married, and what fine men they've become, and how he loved them, etc. If you were to tell somebody who didn't know you or your father and your relationship with him, Daddy's little princess, in 30 to 45 seconds, maybe a minute, tell me about your dad.
My dad was a gregarious, fun-loving salesman all his life. Everybody that knew him loved him. He was a great storyteller. He was a great jokester. He was loving, sweet, gentle, and kind. I have 5 brothers, if you did not know.
You're the only girl, but you're not the youngest. You're next to youngest child.
Right. I'm the next to youngest.
And you have one younger brother.
One younger brother. All of my family, my mother included, could sleep till 2 in the afternoon, except for me and my father. We were both early risers. We would get up at the butt crack of dawn. I always did. Even as a teenager, I'd get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. We'd go sit in our little family room. He'd sneak, even as a little child, he'd sneak me coffee against my mother's wishes, and we'd sit and drink coffee together. I remember even in my college days, I'd be cramming for a test early one morning. I didn't have to be at school till 8:30 or 9 or whatever, and I'd be cramming for a test, and he'd come in. He'd say, let me ask you some questions. Let me ask you some of the questions. We'd sit, drink our coffee. Him in the rocking chair, me sitting on the sofa. He loved me unconditionally and would do anything for me, any day, any moment. And it was mutual. It was mutual. His hugs were like nothing I've ever felt in my life. He was a strange character, though. He would drink his buttermilk. He would dunk a big thing of cornbread in it.
My grandfather did that.
But
go ahead.
His biscuits.
Let me ask you
He
something.
made homemade biscuits that would just make your mouth
Your
water.
father was not only a veteran, a combat veteran of World War II.
Yes.
But he was a Bronze Star winner.
Yes, he was.
He saw, and he never talked about it, and you and I kind of talked about that a couple of weeks ago, where my friend Jack's dad was at D-Day, and then at Okinawa. Mm-hmm. After the war in Europe, he went to the Pacific, and he never talked about it either. And finally he said, I don't want to. It's awful.
Yeah.
I don't want to remember that crap.
Right.
It was terrible.
Right.
Given all the really awful stuff that your dad saw, can you sort of connect the dots to where he still was the man he was?
Oh, gosh, yeah. He was a strong, honorable man. My father would not have cheated on his taxes. He would not have cheated in business. He would not have, if you would overpay somewhere or underpay a bill, he would call them back and go, I think you got this bill wrong. You didn't charge me for my iced tea. He would stop a waitress and do those kinds of things. One of my favorite stories of my dad and was just to show you how much a father cared for a child is this story from somewhere in the middle of Mississippi. I think Greenville, Mississippi. I'm not sure. He was a traveling salesman. And during the summer, he would take, each child would go with him for one of the weeks he would be traveling. And I went one particular summer, and we were staying in a hotel right across the street from the main drag where all the little shops were, downtown Greenville, Mississippi, all the shops. And he'd go in, he'd haul his samples in, do the show, and he'd take his orders, and then he'd move down to the next store. he tells me I'll be back for lunch. We'll have lunch. And I'm about 12, I guess, 10 or 12. And I was a good swimmer. He said, go swimming if you want, and I'll be back for lunch. I'll bring you lunch. I'm at the pool swimming lunchtime. And my father comes back to the pool, and he has lunch, bagged lunches for us. And he comes up, and he's dressed to the nines. Suit, tie, nice shoe, pocket square, the whole shebang. Look, he was a handsome man.
Let me interject. Carrying that sample bag.
Yeah.
In 100-degree summer heat.
Oh,
or
absolutely.
sample bag. Okay.
And then he has our lunch, and he sits on the diving board. This is the days when there were diving boards at hotel pools, when you could have those. You can't have those anymore. And I get out of the pool, and we both sit up on the diving board. Hot summer heat. Remember, he's in a suit and tie, all dressed up. We could have gone in the hotel room and eaten our food. We could have gone indoors anywhere and eaten our food. But he knew how much fun I was having, and he didn't want me to have to get out and dry off and all that and go in. He said, no, just come up and eat, and we'll sit and chat for a minute, and then you can go back in the pool. He sat on that diving board, sweated like a pig, I'm sure. I never even thought of it. What kind of a father does that? It's somebody who truly does what makes their child happiest at that moment. And I look back, Robert, I can see him sitting on that diving board in that beautiful suit and tie, eating his burger. I know he was miserable. He had to be miserable. Who's comfortable in that? In 95-degree heat. He did it because that's how much he loved me and wanted me to be happy.